Ethan Miller never imagined he'd be standing in a hospital room, cradling two newborn babies he never knew existed. At 33, life had already thrown enough curveballs his way. The prestigious Harvard education cut short after his coming-out speech at a campus event led to harassment so severe campus security became involved. The painful phone call from his father in Vermont's stern voice cracking with disappointment, announcing that Ethan was no longer welcome at family gatherings. The divorce papers from Jason, his husband of 5 years, who loved Ethan deeply but couldn't reconcile with his desperate desire for children. The dim light of the Boston Public Library at midnight had become Ethan's sanctuary. Between organizing reference materials and helping the occasional night owl student, he found peace in the quiet dignity of books that never judged him. His small South End apartment overlooked the community garden, where same-sex couples walked hand in hand without fear. It wasn't the life he'd planned, but it was his. 2 years earlier, drowning in student loan debt, Ethan had made a decision he rarely thought about now. Boston Cryobank had advertised generous compensation for donors meeting their stringent criteria. After extensive screening, his application was accepted, his Harvard background and artistic talents making him an appealing candidate. The money helped stabilize his finances, and Ethan filed the experience away, believing his genetic material would remain anonymous, a theoretical contribution to someone else's family story. Richard Thompson, Massachusetts, state senator with presidential ambitions and a practiced smile that never reached his eyes, and Margaret, his investment executive wife, whose Chanel suits couldn't disguise her desperate longing for a child, had visited Boston's most exclusive fertility clinic. They came from old Boston money, political dynasties dating back generations. They selected an egg donor with Ivy League credentials and artistic talents. For the sperm donor, they chose someone with an athletic background and scientific mind. Neither donor was Ethan Miller. Lisa Carson, a kind-hearted nurse from Somerville with 3 children of her own, agreed to be their surrogate. Her motivation was purely altruistic, helping a couple experience the joy of parenthood that had blessed her own life. The medical procedures went smoothly, with Dr. Sarah Chen, the clinic's renowned fertility specialist, personally overseeing the embryo transfer. The call that changed everything came on a snowy December evening. Diana Rodriguez, a night nurse at Massachusetts General Hospital and frequent library patron, recognized Ethan behind the circulation desk. "There's something you need to see," she whispered, eyes troubled beneath fluorescent lights. "A surrogate just delivered twins, and one has the exact same crescent birthmark on his shoulder as you do." And when Ethan arrived at the hospital, bewildered and skeptical, he found chaos instead of answers. Lisa lay exhausted in recovery while 2 perfect newborns slept in the nursery, both with wisps of golden hair that matched Ethan's own. Through some administrative mix-up, he was allowed into the viewing area. His heart stopped when he noticed the distinctive, crescent-shaped birthmark on the second baby's shoulder, identical to the mark he and his estranged brother both carried. If you've ever felt that fate works in mysterious ways, if you've ever discovered that life's greatest gifts arrive when least expected, this story is for you. Subscribe to Heart Stories for more true tales of courage, identity, and the remarkable power of choosing yourself. The medical staff's whispered conversations ceased whenever Ethan approached the nursery window. Dr. Sarah Chen avoided eye contact during her hurried rounds, clipboard clutched tightly against her chest. Lisa Carson, still recovering from her difficult delivery, hadn't been told anything beyond that the twins were healthy. The hospital administrator repeatedly assured Ethan that his presence was unnecessary, yet something in her tight smile suggested complications she wasn't authorized to discuss. Michael Wong arrived within hours of Ethan's concerned call, legal briefcase in hand and suspicion evident in his narrowed eyes. "Something feels off," Ethan explained, pacing the hospital waiting room as midnight approached. "Those babies look exactly like my baby photos, and that birthmark is hereditary in my family." Michael's response was measured but direct. "You donated to a sperm bank 2 years ago, but that doesn't necessarily connect to these children. Still, we should investigate." The Thompsons' absence grew conspicuous as the first day passed. Nurses exchanged significant glances when asked about the intended parents. Diana Rodriguez, who had risked her job by contacting Ethan, finally whispered the truth during her break. "They've seen photos of the babies," she said, voice barely audible. Their lawyer called. They're claiming the clinic made a catastrophic error and used the wrong genetic materials. They're refusing to take custody. Lisa was devastated upon learning the news. "I carried them for 9 months," she said, tears streaming down her pale cheeks. "How could anyone reject them?" Her husband James arrived, bringing comfort and practical support while their own children were cared for by grandparents. The hospital social worker began making calls about temporary placement while Ethan stood frozen before the nursery window, unable to tear himself away from the babies who somehow seemed connected to him. Dr. Chen finally approached Ethan late that evening, her professional demeanor cracking under evident distress. "We're conducting an internal investigation," she admitted. The Thompsons selected specific donors with particular traits: brown eyes, athletic build, scientific background. These babies matched none of those characteristics. She hesitated before continuing. "Preliminary testing suggests a potential sample mix-up occurred. We're trying to determine exactly what happened." Robert Lewis from Rainbow Families Boston arrived unannounced, having heard about the situation through his extensive community connections. At 65, his silver hair and weathered face reflected decades of fighting for LGBTQ+ parental rights. "The system isn't equipped for situations like this," he explained gently to Ethan. "Those babies could be separated and lost in foster care for months while the legal mess untangles." Jason's unexpected appearance that evening shifted something in Ethan's resolve. His ex-husband stood awkwardly in the hospital corridor, offering coffee and a shoulder to lean on. "I know that look in your eyes," Jason said quietly. "It's the same one you had when you talked about having children during our marriage." The unspoken question hung between them. Was Ethan considering the impossible against all medical protocol? Diana arranged for Ethan to hold the twins that night. She placed first one, then the other, into his trembling arms. "Sometimes the universe has its own plans," she murmured, adjusting the blue hospital blanket around the smaller twin. As Ethan gazed down at their perfect faces, something primal and protective awakened within him. These children, rejected before their first sunset, somehow carried his genetic blueprint. The birthmark was undeniable evidence of a connection that transcended coincidence. Morning brought a hospital administrator with forms and sympathetic platitudes about temporary guardianship options. Ethan interrupted her rehearsed speech with unexpected certainty. "I want DNA testing. I believe these children are biologically mine, not from any donation to the Thompsons, but through some mix-up at the clinic." The silence that followed confirmed his growing suspicion that the fertility clinic already knew something had gone terribly wrong. The Boston winter turned brutal as the hospital corridors filled with whispered legal consultations. Snow piled against the windows while Richard Thompson dominated local news channels, campaigning on traditional family values without a trace of irony. Margaret's complete absence from public appearances triggered speculation among political commentators about marital troubles. Meanwhile, the twins remained in hospital care, their future suspended in bureaucratic limbo as accusations flew between the fertility clinic and the surrogacy agency. Michael Wong worked tirelessly, legal pads filled with scribbled precedents and strategies. "We've requested the clinic's records," he explained during a late-night strategy session in Ethan's apartment. "They're claiming confidentiality laws prevent disclosure of specific donor information. But we're arguing that these extraordinary circumstances warrant transparency." His determination hardened as he witnessed Ethan's growing attachment to the twins, now temporarily released to his care during daytime hours while legal matters untangled. Lisa Carson became an unexpected ally. Still recovering from her difficult delivery, she arrived at the hospital daily, working with Ethan to care for the babies she'd carried. "I agreed to be their surrogate, not to abandon them," she explained, demonstrating proper swaddling techniques with practiced ease. A preliminary DNA test had delivered shocking news. She was not merely the surrogate, but potentially the biological mother of these twins. The implications stunned everyone involved. The breakthrough came through an administrative assistant at the fertility clinic who contacted Michael anonymously. There was a catastrophic labeling error, she whispered during their clandestine meeting in a Harvard Square coffee shop. The embryos implanted in Lisa Carson weren't created from the Thompsons' selected donors. Instead, they mistakenly used Miss Carson's own eggs, harvested during her preliminary screenings, and sperm from donor number BX427, who donated around the same time as the intended anonymous donor, was selected. BX427 was Ethan's donor identification number. Armed with this information, Michael petitioned for comprehensive DNA testing through emergency court order. Judge Patricia Gomez, known for her progressive stance on family rights, granted the request despite vehement objections from the Thompsons' high-powered legal team and the fertility clinic's attorneys. The clinic received a subpoena for all records related to the Thompson surrogacy arrangement and Ethan's donation history. The hospital nursery became Ethan's second home. Diana arranged for a rocking chair to be placed near the twins' bassinets, where he spent hours reading children's books aloud, his librarian's voice soothing them to sleep. He temporarily named them Blue and Bear while awaiting their uncertain fate, careful not to become too attached despite his growing conviction about their biological connection. Robert Lewis organized a rotation of volunteers from Rainbow Families Boston to support both Ethan and the Carsons. They delivered home-cooked meals, researched precedent cases, and provided emotional support during the agonizing wait for comprehensive test results. Family isn't always formed the way we expect, Robert reminded Ethan during their daily coffee meetings. Sometimes it finds us through the most unlikely circumstances. Now, Jason's role evolved from supportive ex-husband to potential co-parent as the reality of the situation crystallized. "If these are your biological children," he said carefully one evening, "I want you to know I was wrong before. Seeing you with them, it's who you were always meant to be." The possibility of reconciliation remained unspoken but hovered between them, complicated by years of separation, yet illuminated by this extraordinary circumstance. The comprehensive DNA results arrived while Ethan sat in the hospital rocking chair, singing softly to the twins. Michael called with news that shattered and rebuilt Ethan's world simultaneously. Confirmation showed he was indeed the biological father of both twins with 99.8% certainty. Lisa Carson was their biological mother. Her eggs had been harvested during her pre-surrogacy medical screening and mistakenly used instead of the designated donors. Through an almost impossible series of errors, Ethan and Lisa, two strangers, had become biological parents to twins neither had planned. The Thompsons' reaction was swift and calculated. Their representative arrived at the hospital unannounced, bearing a settlement offer with breathtaking figures and ironclad confidentiality clauses. "Senator Thompson is prepared to be extremely generous," the lawyer explained with practiced smoothness. "Naturally, this includes complete silence regarding this unfortunate laboratory error. The clinic has already offered substantial compensation to both of you separately." Ethan studied the document, the life-changing sum represented by those zeros, then exchanged glances with Lisa and James Carson, who had received similar offers. The Carson situation was particularly complex. Lisa was the biological mother of these twins, yet she had entered the arrangement as a surrogate, never intending to expand her family. 3 children waited for her at home, their lives established and rhythms set. Lisa's decision came after long discussions with James. "These babies deserve stability and love," she told Ethan during their difficult conversation in the hospital chapel. "Our family is complete, but yours is just beginning. We want to remain connected to them, but we believe you should have primary custody." Her willingness to support Ethan's petition while maintaining a special role in the children's lives would prove crucial in the legal battle ahead. The courtroom battle that followed became a landmark case, though sealed to protect the children. Judge Gomez's chambers overflowed with medical experts, ethicists, and family advocates. The fertility clinic director's testimony revealed systemic failures in sample tracking and verification protocols. Richard Thompson never appeared personally, sending instead a battalion of attorneys who argued that the contract with the surrogate should be voided entirely. Dr. Ira Chen provided key testimony, about the multiple points of failure that led to this unprecedented situation. The probability of this specific error occurring is infinitesimal, she explained under oath. It required at least 3 separate protocol breaches across different departments. Her career at the fertility clinic ended with her testimony, but her medical ethics remained intact as she advocated for the children's best interests above institutional reputation. Judge Gomez's ruling established new precedent for similar cases. Biology alone doesn't determine parentage, but when combined with demonstrated commitment to a child's welfare and extraordinary circumstances such as these, the court must prioritize stability and attachment bonds already forming. The fertility clinic faced sanctions. The Thompsons retreated from public view citing family health matters, and Ethan received primary custody with Lisa and James maintaining significant visitation rights as an extended family arrangement. The media circus outside the courthouse forced Ethan to navigate a gauntlet of reporters shouting questions about Senator Thompson and the fertility clinic scandal. Michael shielded him effectively, issuing a brief statement. "My client's only concern is the well-being of his children. He asked for privacy during this transition." Robert Lewis arranged a volunteer security detail from Boston's LGBTQ+ community to protect Ethan's apartment from intrusive photographers. Ethan's South End apartment underwent rapid transformation. The spare room, once filled with library science textbooks, became a nursery painted soft blue. Jason assembled cribs with quiet efficiency, while Diana organized donated baby supplies. Lisa brought clothes her children had outgrown and demonstrated proper bathing techniques for newborns. The community that Ethan never expected formed around him, creating a foundation for his sudden fatherhood. On the day Ethan officially brought the twins home, he finally gave them their permanent names, Noah and Liam Miller. The birth certificates listing him as their father and Lisa as their mother represented more than legal documentation. They were the first chapter in an extraordinary story none of them had anticipated. As Michael explained while they completed the paperwork, this case redefines family formation in Massachusetts jurisprudence. The path you've traveled involuntarily may ultimately protect countless others who face similar circumstances. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Ethan had become an accidental pioneer in the very cause he'd once hoped to champion. Through an error that shattered the Thompsons' plans and upended his solitary life, he had found the family he always wanted. Sometimes destiny arrives through the most unexpected channels, teaching us that families form not only through careful planning, but sometimes through remarkable coincidence and courage. Boston snow blanketed the playground, where Noah and Liam, now 7 years old, built elaborate fortresses with neighborhood children. Ethan watched from a bench, manuscript pages of his latest children's book scattered beside him, red editing pen forgotten in his hand. 7 years of unexpected fatherhood had transformed him in ways he could never have imagined on that fateful hospital night. The financial struggles had been brutal initially. His night librarian position couldn't sustain a family of 3, forcing him to supplement income with freelance editing while completing his degree online during precious hours when the twins napped. The modest publishing advance for his first book, 2 Miracles I Never Expected, had provided momentary relief, but true stability only came when it became required reading in progressive elementary schools nationwide. Social challenges proved equally daunting. The Traditional Family Values Coalition picketed Noah and Liam's preschool enrollment, holding signs declaring, "Children need traditional parents." Some families withdrew their children, others became unexpected allies, forming protective circles around Ethan during drop-offs. The twins' teacher, Mr. David Reynolds, emerged as their fiercest advocate, later becoming something more to Ethan as coffee meetings evolved into family dinner invitations. Lisa and James Carson remained constants in the boys' lives, creating an extended family structure that defied conventional categories. Sunday dinners at the Carson home allowed Noah and Liam to bond with their half-siblings, while Lisa and Ethan coordinated school activities and healthcare decisions with remarkable harmony. "We're writing our own rules," Lisa often said, when questioned about their unusual arrangement. The Carsons' older children embraced their unique role as half-siblings, the eldest daughter becoming a trusted babysitter and homework helper. Noah developed extraordinary musical talent, his small fingers coaxing melodies from the second-hand piano, Robert helped them acquire. Liam's fascination with astronomy transformed their small balcony into an observation deck cluttered with star charts and a telescope purchased through community fundraising. Both boys inherited Ethan's intellectual curiosity and Lisa's compassionate nature, creating personalities entirely their own, yet somehow reflecting their unique biological heritage. The medical emergency came without warning: Liam's rare blood disorder requiring bone marrow transplantation with specific genetic markers. Lisa's oldest son proved to be a perfect match. The shared genetics that had once created such legal complications now becoming the miracle that saved Liam's life. During the long hospital stays, Jason returned from Seattle, where he had relocated after remarrying, taking leave from his law practice to support the family he had once been unable to imagine. Margaret Thompson appeared alone at the hospital during Liam's recovery, silver now threading her immaculate bob, eyes haunted with regret. "I've followed their progress from afar," she admitted quietly, standing awkwardly in the corridor with a gift-wrapped package. "Richard refuses to acknowledge what happened, but I wanted you to know not everyone turns away from difficult truths." The educational trust fund she had established anonymously for both boys revealed the complexity of her feelings about the situation. The landmark legal precedent established by their case ultimately protected dozens of families affected by similar fertility clinic errors. Ethan's reluctant testimony before the state legislature helped pass the Reproductive Technology Accountability Act, ensuring greater transparency and safeguards. The fertility clinic reforms implemented nationwide traced their origins to that snowy Boston night when two babies with unexpected genetic connections found their way to the father who never knew to expect them. On Noah's 9th birthday, during the school talent show, Ethan sat between David and Lisa, their unconventional family filling an entire row. The Carsons' children, Jason and his new husband, and Robert Lewis all gathered to celebrate. Noah stepped forward, violin tucked confidently under his chin, and dedicated his performance to "My dad, who never planned to find me but fought to keep me when he did, and my mom Lisa, who gave us all a chance at family." The music soared, Liam turning occasionally from his stage manager position to flash encouraging smiles at his brother. Have you ever discovered that your greatest blessings arrive through unexpected mistakes? Would you have made the same choice Ethan did, choosing an unplanned family over a simpler life? Share your thoughts in the comments about times when life's errors became your most important gifts. Subscribe to Heart Stories for more true tales of courage, resilience, and the extraordinary power of choosing family in all its beautiful forms.